How to live a slow life when people around you don't want the same thing. Maybe you want to have a quiet life, spend time alone at home, but your family members want to invite friends over or have more social life. Maybe you want to live frugally, but your friends don't understand. They have different ideas of finances. If any of this sounds familiar to you, then this video is for you. Hi, my name is Jana. Welcome back to my channel, where I talk about slow living and my life in the Finnish countryside. I'm currently home alone. My husband took the kids to visit some relatives. They're having a break from school right now this week. And I stayed behind because I have things to do, but also because I was in need of a break. I needed some quiet time alone. This brings me to my first point on this video, which is that you don't always need to do the same things as your family members. It's okay to have different ideas of what kind of a life you want. Of course, if your goals and ideas of a perfect lifestyle are way too different, then that might be a problem. But in smaller matters, I think it's easily organized that you just don't do all the same things as your family members. I'm the one who wants a quiet life in my family. My husband is way more social than I am. My kids often want to have friends over. They have hobbies and they love them. And what for me feels busy is just normal life for them. And I have had to accept that my idea of a perfect life is not the same for them. Often my husband takes more responsibility in taking them to those places, knowing that that's something that I don't enjoy as much. He also likes to go to the gym a couple of times a week. He often meets with friends when I don't, and it's fine. I think the important thing is to notice and remember that, or be aware of how you could drift apart if you just did everything completely separately. In my case, before my husband and the kids went on their trip, I organized a hiking day for us so that we went to the forest, the four of us together. We had snacks, we had tea and hot chocolate in a thermos, and it was a lovely trip. It was something that we all enjoyed doing, and I wanted to make sure that we do something together before they go, so that I can enjoy their fall break with them, even though I didn't travel with them. I like the idea of having certain house rules. Maybe they are a compromise between what each family member wants, but they bring a sort of predictability into my life. For example, I like that the house is silent around 10 p.m. in the evening. Of course, it can vary a bit when they're on a holiday. They can stay up later. But I like to keep a certain structure to the day so that I find it easier for me to adapt. I also sometimes just tell my kids that I'm feeling tired now, I'm going to have a bit of rest. And they usually respect that time. They let me have my 30 minutes of peace and quiet. Of course, it's different if your kids are small, but in my case, my kids are 10 and 13. I think it's good to teach them that it's okay for a parent to want to rest for a while, to be undisturbed. And it's okay if they want to have some quiet time as well. Then I need to respect that too. What I think is really important in this is communication. If you and your husband want slightly different things, it can become a big deal if you don't talk about it and if you don't find ways to compromise. Find ways to find common ground so that you can meet halfway. Many people look at life from their own perspective, just as I do as well. So it doesn't really help if you just keep complaining about how they say it all wrong and how they don't take your feelings into consideration. Maybe they are trying their best, they just have a different perspective. But what if your kids don't really value the same things as you do? Maybe you would want to teach them how to spend time away from their mobile phones, how to value other things than labels and status symbols. But they just seem to be living in their own world where they find cool what their friends think is cool, and whatever you say is, you feel like it's not making any difference. This can be especially true with teenagers and older kids. I guess I'm lucky in a way that we live here in a small village where the impressions that the kids get from their friends are not that. They're not the same as they would be in a city. Having clothes by a certain brand or having the newest phone is not something that's very important to their friends either. I think it's important to realize that our kids live in a different world than us. They're a different generation and they have different ideas about things. But even though they don't seem to value your ideas about slow life, I think you are still making a difference by setting an example. If you show them that it's okay to rest, that they don't need to be perfect, that they are good enough, that you love them and accept them no matter what happens, I think that's important and sets a foundation for a slow life. And I guess it's just in our nature that when we are kids we don't really think about these things so much. It comes later, maybe in our 30s, in our 40s, or even later than that. I have been talking about family members and my kids and husband in this video. Those are the people that you live with. If you're single, then it's maybe a bit more simple. You can just decide for yourself what you do. I think it's important to remember that you don't owe any explanations about your life to others who are maybe not so close to you. Of course, if you're in a relationship, you need to discuss things, what kind of choices you make together. But if it's a neighbor or a friend that's not so close to you, maybe a more distant relative who doesn't get your lifestyle, who doesn't get your desire for a slow life, you don't owe explanations to anybody. I think it would be actually wise to set a boundary and decide where your own circle of protection lies, so that you know with whom you discuss these things and with whom you just let go of the need to give any explanations. Otherwise it can feel that everybody is judging you. The life you want is different from the mainstream, but you need to understand that it's okay. You're allowed to have the life that you want, and it doesn't need to be anybody else's business. And often we feel like everybody is judging us, even though they're not. It's just in our mind we feel like there's this judgment even when there isn't. So now I will show you some of the knitting projects I've been working on recently. In one of my previous videos I showed you a sweater that I was making for my son, and now it's almost finished. I only have to weave in the ends, but otherwise it's done. I'm happy with how it turned out. It was kind of a tedious project to knit this in plain stockinette stitch. Usually I pick patterns that have something more, I don't know, something more complicated or something that keeps my mind more occupied when I'm knitting. But I love how basic stockinette sweaters look like, so I'm thinking of making one for myself as well. Not with the same pattern or not even with the same yarn, but something similar. Then this sweater that I'm wearing, this is something that I'm very proud of at the moment. The pattern is called 1908. It's a pattern by Thea Coleman, and it has short sleeves. Let me show you. I contemplated for a long time whether I should be making this with long sleeves. The original sample has short sleeves like this one. Well, I made my sleeves a bit longer than the sample, but in any case it's a short-sleeved pattern. But I spent a lot of time thinking whether it would be more practical for it to have long sleeves. Because this is not a summer t-shirt, this is 100% wool. It's pretty warm. But I just loved how the sample looked like, and I wanted to have the same garment myself. Obviously, I love the cable pattern. It wasn't difficult at all, but you do have to do cables on every right side row. So it's not one of those cable patterns where you only stop for doing cables every 5 or 6 rows or something like that. So it does keep you occupied, but at the same time it's kind of intuitive. You learn it quickly, and I love cables. I love how garments with cables look like, and I like knitting them. I always knit without a cable needle because I just think that's way easier, way faster. The yarn that I used is West Yorkshire Spinners, the Croft DK. And it's a very affordable yarn, but I also got it something like 50% off. So it was a very good deal. And I fell in love with this yarn. It's soft, even though it's 100% wool. I don't know yet whether it will peel or not, but let's just say that so far it's one of my new favorite yarns. It's nothing fancy. It's not like it's anything luxurious, but just for a basic cable sweater like this one, I think it was a very good choice. I've worn this already once or twice, and I just feel like it's perfect for this kind of weather. Right now, it's getting kind of autumn-like here in Finland, and inside wearing something like this with short sleeves feels perfect to me. One day when it was a bit colder, I had a long sleeve t-shirt underneath, and that was a pretty good option as well. One thing about this pattern is that it's knitted bottom up, which is something that many of us don't prioritize doing, because it's so much easier if you knit top down and you can try the garment on as you go. But, well, for me it was interesting to... I have done some garments bottom up previously, but it's a long time ago. So it was interesting for me to do something with a different construction this time. And then I have one more project that I want to show you. I'm making this round yoke colorwork sweater. I have a love-hate relationship to colorwork. I feel like my perfectionism gets the best of me always when I'm knitting colorwork, because when I'm in the middle of the knitting process, before the fabric is blocked, it just seems... it looks so uneven and untidy. I just feel like it's not going to end up looking pretty. But then when I block it, then it looks fine. And I have blocked this one already, and I have to say that it was much worse before blocking. Now it looks okay, in my opinion. I can still see places where I could improve my tension, but it's good enough for me. And I wanted to make this sweater so that I would have something cozy to wear in my everyday life. I wanted something that's not fancy at all, something that I can wear outside in the garden. And the yarn is just basic yarn that I had in my stash. And one of the reasons I started this project was to finally use that yarn. What else? Yeah, so one of the reasons was also that I want to practice doing color work. I have this more complicated project in my mind that I'm going to do next, and I wanted to learn new ways of how to hold the yarn so that my tension is more even. In this case, it was mostly just holding 2 strands of yarn at a time, but here you had to hold 3 strands of yarn of different colors. I've knitted quite a few socks with color work, but this is only my second sweater with color work. And I also don't usually like round yoke sweaters, so this is kind of an experiment on whether that will fit me or not, or whether I should be making some modifications. But so far it's looking good, and the rest of the sweater in the pattern is only knitted with 1 color. But I'm thinking that maybe I could do some kind of color work on the cuffs and on the hem as well, but we will see about that. As always, you can find the details of the patterns and the yarn in the description. Now I would like to hear your thoughts about this matter. Do you feel like it's difficult to have a slow life when people around you don't share the same goal? I would also love to hear if you have any thoughts about my knitting projects, and feel free to share your own knitting with me as well. If you have any tips for me on how to get a more even tension when knitting color work, I would love to hear that. Thank you for watching. Remember to take care of yourself. See you in the next video. Bye bye!